Hello and welcome to video number 2 in the series, which is entitled The Easy Way to Learn Astrology. So this series is given freely. It accompanies this book, and the book only costs £13 and you can get it from any bookstore really. And with these two things, you should be able to set about learning one of the basic astrologies. Now, there are many astrologies. This particular system will teach you how to read a birth chart. So you're born at a certain time and a certain day, and you have your own individual horoscope. As a result, you will be able to construct that horoscope and read it. Now, there are other astrologies. There's a transiting astrology, there's a Vedic astrology, there's an astrology for this and astrology for that. But we're not going to cover all of those. The one we're going to cover is probably the one that is easiest to learn straight away, because we don't need to use planets. We can just take the birth time and look at something called houses and zodiac signs around those houses, and we have enough there to read a birth chart without planets. We will eventually get to planets, but just for the moment, it's easiest just to learn this way, and then when you've got it, you can start to add things to it. It sort of helps you out. If you start in a very complex way, trying to do planets first, and it overwhelms you, and sometimes, well, a lot of time people drop out because they just can't get it. We'll do this, it's easier. Okay, so here we are on the second video. Great, lovely that you're here. I hope you saw the first one. Wherever you found this one, you will find the first one. Yeah, we'll get on. So what we did before was we were looking at the masculine and the feminine, weren't we? So what we're going to do is look at that. We'll look at the feminine cycle, I think. And now, just one second while I just move into a different. I've just gone and that's better. It's going to need to reduce something. Okay. Now, we have looked at the keywords for masculine and feminine. Hopefully, you've gone over those. We've looked at what happens in the extreme feminine and extreme masculine. And so then I wanted to examine the looking further and deeper into masculine and feminine, just so we get some understanding of these energies. So the most obvious thing about the feminine is that it has a cycle. And in the book, we have this cycle. Now, this is just a very poor illustration by me, but, you know, it's on page 17. And what I'm going to do is I am going to share with you at this point and just talk you through this cycle so that you get an idea. There we go. There we are. So we can actually start anywhere in this cycle. It wouldn't matter. It is a cycle. So there is no start and no end, but let's just start somewhere. Let's start over here. It says lamenting, grieving, wailing and crying. Okay. Now, so this is what happens after something has died. And it can be the aging process and the death of a human, or it can be when the crops wither and die in the fields. If we're looking at a human soul dying and passing through, or the human body dying and passing through and the soul separating, what's interesting to note is if we go back a couple of thousand years to the Mediterranean, women were in charge of death. So they actually had professional mourners who would wail and cry and lament at funeral services. And women in general were identified as being a similar energy to the West. So everything sinks and dies in the West. And they were in charge of the whole process. Now, this is obvious, really, because the women were giving birth to the babies. So they probably a natural thing to see. But what we want to learn is that the feminine cycle and the feminine are the feminine itself. It's just so important. It's intrinsic to the whole thing. This is Mother Nature at work. So we have the lamenting, grieving, wailing, and dying, and then the soul or the seed which has come out of the pods. So, or say we take corn, so the corn is withered and died, we're left with a corn cob. That seed is put into underground silos, or in some way something is buried, a body is buried, but it goes into the underworld, it goes underground, and perhaps in seed silos. The feminine then becomes aware of isolation and loneliness. And sexual desire begins to stir because there is a lust for procreation. So therefore, we get this next part of the cycle, which is about feeling lustful and wanting to procreate because of loneliness. So a movement out of the world of one into a world of two. The next part of the cycle is to do with moistness and fertility. So mating, reproduction, fertilization, impregnation. And from that, we get gestation. We get the swelling of the pod or the swelling of the human tummy, the birth, and we get a process which produces or manifests the next life. Then it moves on to that new life, to fruitfulness and ripening, the harvest, and eventually it becomes the withering, the aging, the dying, the death, and it goes through into the lamenting again. Okay, that is, as everybody knows, it's the force of life, it's Mother Nature, and very much involved with the feminine. Okay, what about the masculine? The masculine doesn't actually have a cycle like that. If I wanted to illustrate the masculine, I'd just have to put a straight line going into infinity. Masculine is much more spontaneous. It supplies energy, but it isn't involved in this sort of master plan of Mother Nature. It is the energy, if you like, which gives the cycle of life its ability to keep cycling, but it doesn't actually have such a cycle of its own. So if we're trying to illustrate masculine, it's very hard. I think the best thing to think about when it comes to masculine is fire, simply fire leaping upwards. It's just so illustrative of the masculine energy. And I think in that we also ought to think about planning. So does the masculine actually plan? Well, masculine may plan in short term, but it actually prefers spontaneity, and it may not want to use a long-term plan. I think feminine is in charge of long-term planning and masculine is in charge of short-term planning, like strategies for war, for instance. Whereas the feminine would be a much more long-term plan about not having war, something like that anyway. Anyway, so that's just a useful way to look at the differences between the two. Right, okay, so I'm just going to just move on a bit and we'll talk some more about these two. So the feminine is a creatrix and it creates, and nature fills empty spaces. So we have this wonderful thing which just fills our world slowly and gradually. This is done slowly and gradually. It's called evolution because it is plodding. It takes it's at a pace and it evolves slowly, right? Like Darwinian never mind processes. Okay, but for the masculine, It's more about revolution. It's more about something happening suddenly, sudden change, uproot, uproar, breakthrough, breakdown. The masculine likes to work in that kind of fast-paced energy. Okay, so we understand that the masculine and feminine a little more now. And we understand that in terms of the zodiac signs, if you go back to what we discussed last week, you'll see that the zodiac signs come out of the elements. Okay, so the fire element has Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. The air element has Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. The water element has Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. And then the earth element has Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. Those zodiac signs make up something called the Zodiac Belt. Now, this word zodiac, right, you hear it a lot. I mean, what is a zodiac? What does it mean? Where do we get this word? So what I want to do now is actually sort of look at the Zodiac Belt and how we got it, how we arrived at it, because I think it's important to know the structure of these things, and we can sort of trust them. You know, somebody didn't just sort of sit there and make this up. And to understand the zodiac signs, we first of all have to understand the solstices and the equinoxes. So those 4 days in every year where we get an extreme of the sun. So in the Northern Hemisphere, we get the winter solstice in December. We get the summer solstice in June. And it marks out the furthest that the sun travels in an arc across the sky, either the lowest or the highest. And then the equinoxes, they are all about when the sun is exactly in the middle. So when there are equal amounts of light and dark in the day. And each of those are very, very, very important points. I mean, sorry, the equinoxes at the moment now, these days, maybe, you know, people are not so interested, but my goodness me, the Egyptians were. That meant a lot to them. That was the point of Ma'at, where everything is in harmony, where everything is at peace, where everything is working properly. Okay, so these 4 points of the solstices and the equinox actually make the 4 points of a cross. And they actually use the cardinal directions of north, south, east, and west. And they form a cross around us in the sky. So the early astrologers took that cross and divided each of the quadrants into, well, they divided into, you've got the quadrants, then they divided each of the quadrants into 3 zodiac signs. So that makes obviously 12 portions around the earth. So it's that simple. It's based on the position of the sun at the solstices and equinoxes, which are important resting points for the sun. And then it's just a division of that quadrant into 3 zodiac signs. Okay. Now, I'm just going to go down 1 second to something which I want to show you. Here we are. Right, I'm just going to share again now. No, I'm not. Yes, I am. And it's that one. Okay. Now, this is the Zodiac Belt on a natural wheel. Now, you've seen this because if you've seen anything from ancient Greece, you've seen Hercules, like carrying the world or something like that, then what you'll see is the globe, the Earth, but you'll see this belt around it. So you've got the equator and you've got this Zodiac Belt. It's imaginary. it is simply a mathematical exercise. Okay, now I have used glyphs here. It's about time you started to understand glyphs. So you can find them, just Google astrology glyphs. You can find them on Wikipedia, but there is also an Astro Wiki, so you could find them on there. So what I'm going to do is just show you the repetition of the elements on the Zodiac Belt. Okay, so this is the imaginary circle around the Earth. So you've got to imagine the Earth in the middle and imagine this imaginary belt around the outside, okay, in space. So here we have Aries, which is the first zodiac sign, and it's a fire sign. And fire naturally has to be the first zodiac sign because fire is the spark which brings everything into life. So if we just count 1, 2, 3, 4, sorry, I'm just going to I've not counted Aries there. If we just count the next sign, so 1, 2, 3, 4, we will come to another fire sign, which is Leo. And then if we count 4 again, we'll come to Sagittarius, the last fire sign. And then we can look at the fact that they're sort of in a triangle, really. If I try to draw a line between the 3 of them, then they're sort of in a triangle. Then we get Taurus, obviously an earth sign. And so Taurus is the first one, Virgo is the middle sign, and then Capricorn is the highest earth sign. So we could actually draw a triangle there as well if we wanted to. Then we get to air. So we've got Gemini here, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 Libra, and 1, 2, 3, 4 Aquarius. And again, you can go like that. And then finally water. And Cancer is there, and it goes to Scorpio, and it goes to Pisces, like that. Okay. Okay, now this is drawn in the way of the astrology wheel. This is called a wheel. Let's start to get some of the jargon. And that has been drawn in the way the wheel is drawn that we are going to use on this astrology course. And you can find this on astro.com. Elsewhere in the book, you've got the instructions as to how to arrive at the place where you can print these things off. You'll see this again. The next time you see it, it will have other things in the middle. But what you're learning is you're learning about this first. And what we're going to do is learn all about the zodiac signs first before we do anything else. Okay, so I'm just going to stop that share again. And what we're going to do now is just go to an explanation of a few more things before I move on. 1 second. Right, let's just move this up. Oh, there it is, right. Okay. Now, there are some myths and traditions and things which I need to explain before we get on any further so we can get rid of some of the stuff that you've got in your head. Let me just take a sip of coffee. I call this coffee, not many other people do. Right. Now, one of the things that is out there in the collective and is so annoying for me is something that the astrologers did all those years ago. Well, they weren't called astrologers then. It was the astronomia was the subject, and astrologers and astronomers were the same thing. And I'm not quite sure what the name was. I'll get it wrong, so I better not say it. So they had to name these zodiac signs, right? Well, what they did was they took the names of the zodiac signs from the names of the constellations in the sky. Now, a constellation is a formation of stars, right, in the sky. So it's not planets, it's stars from other galaxies, okay? So way out there, well, no, the stars are from our galaxy, sorry. So it's just, no, I've got to get my head around that one. This is our galaxy, but it's other suns, okay? So they took the name from some of these patterns of stars. You know, when you go out and look at the night sky and you can see patterns of stars and they have names, don't they? The Great Bear and things like this. Well, those patterns were the first things to have the names of the zodiac signs. So they developed the theory of the Zodiac Belt in order that they should have a constant to start to share information about. You have to have a language before you can share information about the skill. So unfortunately, they borrowed the names. They took the names from the constellations and used the same names. And oh my goodness, I think astrologers have been regretting that for a long time, because it means that there is an enormous confusion between the zodiac signs of astrology and the star constellations of astronomy. Well, it's done. And so all you need to know is that when they say, oh, you don't know what you're talking about because the vernal equinox, something or other with the shifting backdrop of, you can just say, well, actually, astrology doesn't use the position of the star constellations. It uses an imaginary belt around the Earth in relation to the sun, and that is called the Zodiac Belt. Unfortunately, they use the same names for portions of the Zodiac Belt. There you go. Let's see if you can remember that. There we are. Right. So that's one thing that I just wanted to get out of the way. Now, the next thing is the difference between a sun sign and a zodiac sign. Well, the zodiac sign is the thing I just showed you on that circle. Okay, so that's that. A sun sign is the position of the sun, and that is relative to the zodiac belt. So from Earth, remember Earth's in the middle, and the zodiac belt, where wherever the sun is around us, the sun will be coming through the light or the color of one of those zodiac signs. So let's say the sun looks to be coming from Cancer, the sun looks to be coming from Capricorn, the sun looks to be coming from Scorpio. Now that is a sun sign, because it's the sign that the sun was in. And we use the word sun sign for a type of astrology called sun sign astrology, which is the astrology that you see in magazines and newspapers, where we can get predictions based on a sun sign. Again, a completely different astrology, totally different. So there we go. So that's the difference between a sun sign and a zodiac sign. And I have to be quite careful to make sure that I stick to the rules on that one, because it's very easy just to say something quickly and then think, oh no, that wasn't exact. So be careful when you're using the word sun sign and zodiac sign. Okay, now what is a birth chart? Let's just cover that. What is a birth chart? So it's a map of the space around a person at their birth. And when we say birth, I mean when they draw their first breath. Now, a baby can be half out the birth canal, so it's not been born yet, but it can be breathing. Or a baby can come out of the birth canal and still have not yet drawn a breath. It's still dependent on the placenta. So birth time, as in baby coming out of the birth canal, is not the accurate one. It's the breath that counts. Having said that, nobody ever records the breath, so we roughly use the time, and it does us, but it's not exact. So what we're going to learn to read is the horoscope, or the birth chart, and this is going to be a division of the space around the baby, which is called houses, and it's reference to that Zodiac Belt, the one that I've been talking about. There we go. Now, when we start to learn, as we're going to, about the elements and then its associated zodiac signs, and we start to learn about Aries, for instance, as you read through the book, you have to understand this. It is not that I'm describing Aries sun signs at that point. So although it might sound like your boyfriend who has his sun in Aries, who was born on April the 1st, it might sound like him, but we all have Aries in our chart somewhere, because that circle was around all of us as we were born, that zodiac belt, and that Aries is coming in at us somewhere. And we could have a load of planets on the other side of Aries coming at us, and the sun isn't there, the sun's somewhere else. And so you might say, oh well, he's a Taurus, he's a sun sign Taurus. Yeah, but there might be 6 planets in Aries, and that might make a very Arian person, a very Aries person. So when I'm talking and when I'm describing the zodiac signs, I'm saying Aries type people, Arians, which means people that have an Aries quality to them. So can we forget sun signs now? It's hard because sometimes I talk sun signs again, but we need to understand that we've all got Aries somewhere. And so this is why you've got to learn all of the energies, because they're all in you. There we go. Okay. Now, we could just look now at the 4 elements of earth, fire, air, and water, and just look at some keywords for each of them. Now, this is just to give you a flavour and a taste for now. And this is sort of a small table so that it's easy to pop in your purse or stick on your fridge, or you could actually stick it around your mug, couldn't you? So every time you go like that, you can learn something. So you'll find this table on page 21. And an element describes the motivation behind a person's actions and choices. So just to start us off, is a list of keywords. So fire is all about attention. It has enthusiasm. It manages confidence. It deals with confidence. It is dramatic and it has warmth. Air is about being detached, pushing people away, being cut off. It's about scrutiny, examining things, going through them. It's about logic, using the brain, going logically through things, but being friendly. Air signs are friendly and sociable. And then earth is very practical. It's realistic, it's reliable, it's calm, and it has restraint. It's feminine. And then feminine water, it's about attachment, sensitivity, compassion, secrecy, and emotion. Now, what I wanted to do was just sort of get you working with the elements, thinking about things as you go through. And that gives you a rough sort of thing to start looking at. And I think what we've got there is we have pretty much covered everything. so that when we get to the next video, which will be next Friday, we can start straight into fire. We will start with fire first. We have to start with fire first because like everything starts with fire. The spark, the origin, the beginning has to be that masculine get up and go. So I mean, it's interesting. I think it's in Genesis. It says the hovering of the masculine over the feminine. It doesn't put it like that. So God hovered over the earth or something. And it is that joining together of the masculine hovering over the feminine and rousing the feminine that is the initial spark. So there we go. It takes two, as they say. Right now, I hope that was useful. And I hope it's not too long. You'll have to let me know if you think I need to take more time or less time or something. It's about concentrating, isn't it, really? I don't like to do too much. Well, hopefully I don't do too much, but anyway. So anyway, that's been great. It's been fantastic to have you on board, and hopefully that was useful. So I'm looking forward to next time, and yeah, have a great week. And how exciting! Don't know what to say. I think the best thing to say, Alison, is goodbye. I think that's the best thing. So I'll do that. Okay, thank you very much. Look forward to number 3. Okay, thanks. Bye.